Hello to myself and everybody else. So far today, we're going to be doing a review on how to draw people, step-by-step lessons for figures and poses. So far with this book, it has a grand total of 5 levels in it, and so far those levels include armature, which also includes gesture drawing in that level as well. Level 2, simplified skeletons. Level 3, simplified volumes. Level 4, major anatomy. And level 5, putting it together. So far, this entire book just covers these concepts to help you be able to draw people in different kinds of poses and be able to make up your own characters once you get used to drawing people from references or using a model. So far with level 1, it starts off with breaking a person down to its simplest form, which in this case is armature. It also can be something close to a stick figure. And with this, it starts off with basically, again, telling you what an armature is so you can get confidence going into this, so you can know what you're doing and why. And then after that, it goes into the demonstrations, and it starts with step 1 with drawing the head, just telling you to just draw some basic circles, get comfortable with it because you're going to be doing that a lot. Then it goes into stuff like the face map and the neck, just to help you be able to take a flat circle and make it look three-dimensional just using a few lines, and help set up for the stuff they're going to be covering later on. Into drawing the different parts of the body, such as the torso, which would just be a basic just line. Into drawing the hips, so you can just get slowly started with that. Then drawing the legs, then the shoulders and arms. Then once you have all of that down, it goes into proportions, so you can be able to try to understand why you had to do all this and help you get your character looking more like a generic person, so it doesn't look like too deformed or misshapen. Then after that, it goes into an assignment, which this book is filled with a ton of them. Basically just telling you to gather reference pictures, and just from that, practice just drawing those as armature. Same thing throughout this book. It just basically gives you different assignments with the pictures you have, so you can practice just drawing them as armature, simplified volumes, a skeleton, just various things like that, so you can always have a reference to go back to, so you won't be struggling to try to come up with a pose to draw for each person. Next, it just quickly goes into armature and motion, just a short thing so you can just get used to thinking about movement before and after, so it can help you try to come up with stuff. Then the next part is gesture drawing, and for this part, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. Yeah, this part of the book you can really skip. This section, it's like a few pages long, let me see, it's like 4 pages long. And yeah, it really doesn't tell you too much information on gesture drawing. It makes it really vague, where just draw bendy lines for your armature. The examples they have aren't really that good, and it will kind of confuse you. So it's better off if you just skip it, to be honest with you. And I won't put a picture of the book up yet, or you know what, bump it, I probably will. Basically, if you want to find a book that is better at explaining what gesture drawing is, The Marvel Way, or Learn How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, that one goes into gesture drawing way better than this book. So I would recommend looking at that if you want to look at gesture drawing. Up next is the simplified skeleton, which is level 2. And the whole point of the simplified skeleton is to basically take the armature drawing that you practiced and then basically just get used to drawing it as a three-dimensional, simplified figure. So basically you're taking the armature and just adding spheres or cubes to it, so you can at least tell depth, width, things like that. It basically goes into just how to draw the head and neck, then goes into the rib cage and spine. After that, it goes into drawing a cube, which you'll use for the lower body. And with that part kind of said, it's kind of a bit inconsistent with that. It goes into drawing the lower body with a cube, then the next part it will draw it with a trapezoid, then later it will draw it with a rectangular prism. So it's a bit inconsistent with drawing the lower body, but again, that's the thing you just have to kind of figure out your own method for, or use another book as an example. Then next is the shoulder girdle, the forearm, and the hands. Then it goes into level 2, so you can just get practice with those pictures you had before and just make sure you have everything down that you need. And the main thing I had to say about this section as well, just that again, this part can kind of be a bit in detail kind of a bit unnecessarily in some areas. Again, you don't really necessarily need to, in my opinion, learn how to draw the arms and legs, like the bones in super high detail. Mostly just focus on the rib cage and pelvis of that. But again, this section, it's kind of just what you find important, really, you work with. You can skip some stuff. That's kind of the main takeaway I got from this. But mostly, again, just learn the rib cage, pelvis, maybe even the skull. That's mostly the main important parts there. Then we hit level 3, which it contains simplified volumes. And so far this part goes into basically just taking the skeleton and you're basically just drawing lines to kind of make the whole form look full. Kind of making pieces look like one rather than them being split apart. So basically it starts off with talking about sculpting forms, which is basically just drawing shapes and then manipulating them so they can look like they're bending, turning. Also, you can just like mess around with it so you can just like break shapes apart. All this is just kind of used as you keep going on in the book to kind of help you just get a better understanding and confidence with drawing shapes. Then up next is drawing the head shape, in which with this basically is telling you to merge shapes together to be able to draw the head, which that's kind of a problem. I'll get into that in a second. But then after that is the neck, where with this, it's just kind of, again, just drawing the neck and everything using a cylinder. Then the next part is merging forms, in which, again, at this point, with drawing the head, it brought up merging forms. So this part kind of comes in a little bit late. That's kind of the only thing I have to really say about it. They probably should have put this a little bit earlier. But so far with the merging forms, it goes into just drawing two shapes, then just tells you to basically mess around with just like drawing lines, connecting them, and just seeing what you can do with it. Just experiment with getting the shape to twist, turn, bend. It really doesn't give that many suggestions on how to do that. You just need to experiment, just kind of see what you can do. But yeah, it can just take a little bit of time with this part. Next, it goes into merging the chest and hips, which again, this part, there's really not as much advice as you need. So it's kind of just look at the pictures and see what you can figure out when you're drawing it. So it can take a bit of time here. Then after that is the cylindrical forms, basically showing you how to draw a cylinder and how to manipulate it, which it kind of worked with earlier with the neck. But again, they put it after that point for some reason. But then after that is the lower body, showing you basically how to draw the legs so you can be able to draw the lower part of the body. And it also includes being able to draw the feet. And then next, it goes into drawing the arms and hands, which basically goes into just like drawing certain parts of the arms so the cylinders can connect and make it look like one piece. Basically trying to make it kind of look atomically accurate and everything. So that's another thing that can just take a little bit of time with that. Then after that is another thing of just practice to make sure you have it down. And then after that, we hit level 4 with the major anatomy. So far, this part, it basically just quickly goes into little things such as getting a generalized idea of certain muscles so you can kind of draw like an outline of it, make your character kind of look more atomically correct. But it doesn't really go into depth on everything because there's like a ton of muscles in the body. So if it covered everything, it will take forever. But so far, just some of the parts it does cover are eyes, nose, mouth, movement of waist, upper leg movement, arm and shoulder movement, and skin. Those are just a few of the things covered in the major anatomy part of the book. They basically just give you a quick rundown so you can just kind of like get a generalized idea to try to replicate that part of the body. But again, it's a thing where you probably can look at an anatomy book as well, or maybe another example or a model and see if you can get it down as well. This kind of a thing that's just better for like tips and advice. So again, kind of take it with a grain of salt. And then finally, we hit level 5, which is putting it together. And this part is basically about everything we did in the book, which basically includes just making sure you got every part down and see if you just mastered each step of the book. So far, again, just looking at some of it, it basically talks about starting off with drawing an armature of a model. So it can be from a picture you have just to see if you have it down. Then make a gesture drawing, in which this is like the second time you see a gesture drawing mentioned in this book. It's only really mentioned in level 1 and then here, and that's it. So that's something where, again, I kind of recommend another book to learn and practice more about that. Then after that, it's creating volume and then adding anatomy. Then after that, it's just drawing the total figure, basically just with anatomy, skin, all that. And that's basically majority of the entire book right there, just levels 1 through 5, just looking at all of those. So far, my whole thoughts on this book, and I was basically giving them during the closer look a bit. Again, I've worked with this book for a very long time. This was like the first book I really worked with when it came down to learning how to draw. So far, when I first got this is a book I just found at the bookstore and was just like, let me give this a shot, see if it can teach me how to draw. And the main thing I can say about this book is, if you do not know how to draw, you have no confidence, you have no skill, you do not know how to do anything, this is definitely a book I would recommend getting, because it breaks everything down pretty well to help you build confidence in each part. So if you go in not knowing how to do anything, you can do each one of these steps slowly until you feel confident with it. Then from there, you can be able to just move on and just build from it. And while you're building confidence, you can also like learn to critique your own work, and that can help you learn how to improve on what areas, like help you learn what areas you need to improve on. And it can also help you with kind of not just blindly following the book as well, because there are some things in this book, as I was mentioning before, that are kind of problems a little bit here and there. Basically involving with the armature, the problem in that area is the proportion, because the book really doesn't give you any kind of like tips when it comes to if you're struggling with proportion, because I was struggling with that, and I basically had to look up and learn if you draw circles for the joints, that can help you be able to like tell the space between each part of the body. So that's just something you have to look up or get advice from and learn from somewhere else. It's like very useful for that. Then the other problem I said before was the gesture drawing part. With the gesture drawing, this book basically doesn't give you too many tips or advice or even examples with that. You kind of just see finished results of gesture drawing, which is kind of a problem because the book itself basically just tells you draw an armature, but do it quickly with like lines that give it a motion, and that's it. And again, you can read that, maybe it clicks in your head, okay, I get what they're saying. But the moment you pick up the pencil and try to do it, you realize, wait, I didn't understand a word they just said. What does that mean? So yeah, that's kind of a whole problem there with the gesture drawing. I took a month researching that, and I basically just learned because I looked at how to draw comics the Marvel way. That part basically introduced gesture drawing after they taught simplified volumes, in which it made way more sense for the purpose of gesture drawings, which is it's a way to prevent you from drawing an entire simplified volume and then going, this isn't correct. Gesture drawing is a way to just quickly get the pose and shape down with minimum amount of lines so you can just kind of see what's up. Again, that's something in the Marvel way I would recommend to look at, but in this book, they really kind of just gloss over it. Plus, they don't mention gesture drawing again until level 5. So that's kind of a whole thing there. If you get this book, I recommend skipping gesture drawing entirely, because that part will just get you kind of stuck and confused. So far with the simplified skeleton, so far that part does break things down pretty well. It's just the main thing if I had to kind of say about it is that it doesn't really give kind of tips or suggestions for certain areas you might get stuck on, such as when it comes down to drawing the rib cage, I kind of needed to know how far should I draw it, like how big or how small. It took me looking at another book to kind of figure out like the length of the rib cage, like what that should be. Then there's other things too, like I said before, with drawing the arms and legs. If you're not really going for like a high detail skeleton, you really don't need to work too much with the part on the arms and the skeleton legs. You can kind of just skip that part, keep the stick legs and arms. Again, I mostly recommend just working specifically with the skull, even though I didn't get that part down, but basically the skull, the ribs, and the pelvis. Those are like the 3 areas I really recommend just sticking with those. Then when it comes down to the simplified volume, that one I just said some of the parts I said they probably should have switched around a bit. Like they should have went with the simplified shapes like they did in the beginning. Then they should have went into merging shapes and then cylinders and then go into drawing the body, where it was like drawing the head, which I still didn't get that part down, drawing the rib cage and pelvis and then merging them, in which with that part you kind of have to make some assumptions when drawing it, because so far just I made some videos on this book, like a bunch of videos on this book, and when it comes down to the rib cage and pelvis, you kind of have to just make assumptions where it's like, okay, I'll erase some lines here to make things look like they're blending together. I'll draw lines and connect this just to see what happens. Just a lot of stuff you have to make assumptions on, or just try your best to figure out. That's kind of a thing I say the book probably should have elaborated a bit more on. But again, you can just kind of try to figure it out or something. Again, there's other books that kind of explain stuff a little bit better, but again, it's just something I'm bringing up right now. And then when it gets over to the anatomy part I can't really talk a ton about because I'm really just focused on doing the mannequin part right now. So basically levels 1, 2, and 3. When it comes down to level 4 and 5, 4 with the anatomy, I'm not really touching that. So that one I can't really give too much of a judgment on. That's a matter of if somebody gets this book, give your own judgment on it and just kind of say what's up with that. And the last part, just the making sure you got everything down. Again, that's just kind of a review, just seeing can you do each part that was in the book. Again, the only other time you see gesture drawing, the beginning part basically introduces gesture drawing armature. So you're basically changing an armature to a gesture drawing. Then in the end of the book, you're basically changing the actual model to a gesture drawing. So again, you can just completely skip gesture drawing in this book. It's not really explained that well. Overall, if I had to give my opinion on this book, my main thing is this. Again, even though I kind of said a lot of like complaining about this book, again, this is a really good book if I had to recommend for getting started with drawing. If you have no skills, no confidence, nothing, this book does give you confidence to get started. It will make you want to keep improving, and it'll give you just every piece you need to at least get started with stuff. Now, with all that being said, it's a definite thing that if you're like me, once you get through levels 1, 2, and 3, you're probably going to have to do some research while doing each one of those parts. Basically, once you finish levels 1, 2, and 3, I would recommend kind of going to some other books for review. Basically, to learn other methods and to help kind of elaborate a bit more on certain parts that maybe weren't elaborated on that much in this book. So basically, if I had to say, work with this book first, then try books out like How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way to try to get like armature and other stuff down as well too, as well as it goes into simplified volumes and stuff like that. Then another book, the Jack Hamm figure drawing book. This book again, it's good for helping draw simplified figures as well as the simplified skeleton. It's kind of more simple than the one in this book, so again, I recommend glancing at that too. Then for like stuff on the skeleton and simplified volumes as well, and even also anatomy if you need help with that too, I recommend looking at the female figure book. This book does go a lot into drawing the body with skeletons and goes to the muscle structure and stuff quite a bit. So again, it's something I recommend just to kind of look at to get more tips and advice on drawing certain parts. And then finally, the figure drawing for what it's worth. That's another book that does go into depth on doing like 3D shapes and being able to like put them together to make a human or a figure as well. Again, I'm listing off a lot of books and stuff here, but basically these books I recommend like to look at after you look at this How to Draw People by Jeff Mellem. After you look at this book, I would recommend checking out those other ones because those were other books I was flipping through as well when I was working with this to try to understand things better. So again, it's like those other books made more sense once I flipped through this book. So that's my main reason for saying you should probably get this book as well and just see what you can do. Again, I have a bunch of videos on them, so basically you can use that to just kind of see if you're into the book. But if you are, I recommend getting it because you never know what can happen in the future with some of these books. You never know what can still just be around or they go up in price. You have no idea. So again, because I bought this book from the bookstore new, so I bought it in the US for $24.99. In Canada, it's $33.99. You probably can find it cheaper on thrift books somewhere. So it's just one of those things I recommend and everything. So absolutely, like I said, this book, even though I had like a lot of critiques about it, I highly recommend to get it if you're new to drawing. You have no confidence or anything, so absolutely pick up this book or again, watch my videos. But I still recommend picking up the book too, even if you watch the videos, just to find out, is it something you really want? But again, I just recommend it. The other books I listed, those books again, I'll probably put like the names of them in the description. Those books I recommend because again, after you work with this Jeff Mellem book, these other books will help elaborate more into these other parts you might need help with. and help you be able to improve more. And it can also act like review and help you just get better. So that's really the whole thing with that. I've been rambling long enough, so that's really it. That's all I had to say about this book. I recommend getting it. It's pretty good. So to myself and everybody else, see you in the next one.